Hey, it's Craig back with another Mortgage Minute. And have you seen people post online about doing a mortgage assumption and taking over a seller's mortgage with a really low interest rate? It sounds phenomenal and it is possible, but you need to understand how mortgage assumptions work because the reality is it's not very likely that you're going to be able to pull that off. And that's the one one piece of information that the people posting about that I think they overlook. So here's how a mortgage assumption works, just so you know. So you've got a seller that's selling a house and they have a mortgage on that house, and let's just say the interest rate that that seller has is 3.5%. So obviously that would be a really good rate, for someone to have buying a home today. So you go to the seller and you say, "Hey, I'd like to take over your mortgage loan." Okay. It is possible with a mortgage assumption. Now, not all loans can be assumed. So here's a good rule of thumb: FHA loans can be assumed, VA loans can be assumed, and USDA loans can be assumed. So if the seller's got a conventional mortgage on their house, I would say there's a 99.9% chance that loan is not going to be able to be assumed. Okay. But to do the assumption, you can't go to just any mortgage lender. You have to deal with that seller's mortgage company, okay? Because they are the ones that are going to either approve or not approve for you to take over that mortgage for the seller. Okay. So, what has to happen is the seller has to reach out to their mortgage company and get the information that would be needed from the mortgage company. Probably get a checklist of stuff like, here's what your buyer would need to do that mortgage assumption. Now, here's why I say it's not very likely that you're really going to probably pull that off. So, there's two things. Number one, you have to assume the seller's equity position. So, what do I mean by that? If the seller is selling the home for $400,000 and their current mortgage balance is $200,000, that means you either have to put $200,000 down to be able to assume their mortgage, or you've got to come up with a second mortgage to come up with the difference between what you were planning on putting down and that 200,000 for the seller. Because remember, the seller's not going to sell you their house for $200,000. So if you take over their $200,000 mortgage, you still have to come up with another $200,000. That's the biggest obstacle people have. The second obstacle I would tell you in doing a mortgage assumption is the seller doesn't care whether you assume their mortgage or not, right? So I want you to think of it like this. If a seller is selling a home and there's three people that want to buy the house, and one of those people says, "Hey, I want to assume your mortgage. So I need you to call the mortgage company. I need you to get the information we need to do this mortgage assumption." You know what? The seller's going to look at that and go, "Nah, I'm not doing that. There's two other people that want to buy this house. I'm just going to sell it to one of them." Okay. Now, if it's a house that's been sitting for a long time, if there's something really unique about this house and the seller feels like there's no way I'm going to sell this house, and you come to them and say, "Hey, I'd like to assume the mortgage," yeah, maybe the seller would take the time to do that. But here's the thing: mortgage assumptions are not quick turnarounds, okay? Because the mortgage company that the seller is going to talk to them about doing a mortgage assumption, that mortgage company doesn't care about doing a mortgage assumption. The profitability that that servicer makes off doing a mortgage assumption is really low relative to what a mortgage company would make just doing a completely new loan to someone else. So I say all that to say, is it possible to do a mortgage assumption? Absolutely. Is it likely that you're going to pull that off? I'd say it's pretty unlikely. It is possible, but I'd say it's unlikely. So listen, if you've got questions about that, I'd love to help. 615-498-5626. I just wanted to give you some of the background on how it works because I see a lot of things get posted online about, "Hey, you should really try to make this work." And I'm not sure if the people doing it know that, hey, it's not very likely it's going to happen or what, but the full story I don't feel like is being shared. So anyway, if you have questions, call me, and I appreciate you watching.